Good morning. The September 25th, 2019 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. In the interest of promoting the order and efficiency of these hearings, persons who are disruptive to the hearing will be asked to leave the hearing room. Meetings of the Board of Estimates are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. The hearing room must be vacated at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. Madam Deputy Comptroller, are there any corrections, additions, or deferrals on the agenda?
Good morning. For today's agenda, the board did receive additional protests as well as requests for postponement from Spinelli Companies, Inc., and that's in reference to pages 122 to 123, item number 1. That item is currently on the non-routine agenda. We do have one correction for today, and that is on page 83 under the personnel section for item number 44. The first name currently reads Jean, Jean. Please replace that with Jason, Jason. That will now read Jason Christie. I have the following abstentions to report that have been received thus far. The Honorable Mayor Young will abstain on page 49, item number 5, page 61, item number 1, page 89, pages 128 to 129, item number 2, page 130, item number 4, and page 139, item number 14. The Honorable President Scott will abstain on page 49, item number 5, page 128 to 129, item number 2, and page 139, item number 14. The Honorable Comptroller Pratt will abstain on page 4, page 61, item number 1, and page 131, item number 1. And again, the item that remains on the non-routine agenda is pages 122 to 123, item number 1, which is SC 940. Mr. President and members of the board, those are the abstentions that have been reported thus far, as well as the one correction and the supplemental protests and requests to postpone for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I would direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from my office dated September 23rd, 2019, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections and additions that have been noted by the Deputy Comptroller. I will entertain a motion to approve all the items contained on the routine agenda.
Mr. President, before making an appropriate motion, I simply want to mention that the Law Department and IMBU have continued to express concern that certain items are making their way to the board's agenda without an appropriate review by the Law Department and IMBU. It's nobody's fault, but I'm pleased to report to the board that the Chief of Staff, together with the leadership in the Department of Public Works, just yesterday circulated a memorandum and an email notifying everyone that we're going to get back to a very robust pre-Board of Estimates agenda review so that the various agencies in the city are talking to each other about matters of common interest, and to ensure that the Law Department has a full opportunity to use its talented lawyers to review matters of importance to the city so that best practices are followed. In that regard, I'm going to meet with the Director of Finance later today and fill out some of the procedures that we need to follow to make sure that this happens. Because we all want to make sure that what happens before the board is in the best interest of the city. So with that, Mr. President, I'm pleased to move approval of the items on the routine agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carried. The routine agenda items have been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 122 to 123, Recommendations for contract awardees / rejections. Item 1, SC 940, sanitary sewer collection system improvements in the high-level sewer shed. Will the parties please come forward?
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Madam Comptroller, members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Matthew Garbark. I am the Deputy Director of the Department of Public Works. As it relates to Sanitary Contract 940, sanitary collection system improvements in the high-level sewer shed, 4 bids were received on September 26, 2018, one from Northeast Remsco Construction Incorporated, one from Spinello Companies, one from Bradshaw Construction, and one from Oscar Renda Contracting. Upon review, Northeast Remsco was the apparent low bidder, followed by Spinello Companies as the second low bidder. This contract uses state revolving funds through the Maryland Department of the Environment. So instead of being subject to the city's MBE and WBE program, we are subject to the state's DBE program. The state found the lowest bidder in compliance, and the city has deferred to the state as in all matters on the DBE program, and is thus recommending that the contract be awarded to Northeast Remsco as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. I'm joined by members of the Law Department who can explain in more detail some of the legal questions and other issues that are raised in the protests.
Good morning, members of this honorable board. My name is Kyle Hildreth. I'm here with Mike Mullen from the Law Department, as you just heard. The Department of Public Works has reviewed all the bids and recommended this award go to Northeast Remsco as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. As you just heard, this involves state funding, and as such, the state's DBE goals apply. Our city MBU goals are not applicable. The Department of the Environment issued an approval letter on February 22nd. I have a copy of that if you would all like to see it. And I have a copy for you as well, Council. As you can see from the second sentence of that letter, the Department of the Environment has expressly stated that the contract may be awarded to the low responsible bidder, Northeast Remsco Construction, Inc. That letter also approved of Northeast Remsco's use of all its DBEs, including Edwin Drilling and Blasting, excuse me. The Maryland Department of the Environment has reviewed this multiple times following Spinello's protests, and as recently as yesterday, the Maryland Department of the Environment has communicated to the city that it may move forward, and its approval is not going to change. I have a copy of that as well. If you'll give me 1 second. I have a copy for you, Council, too. Here's a copy of that email from yesterday from Mary Shepard, is the Assistant Attorney General at the Maryland Department of the Environment. So as to the issue of blasting versus drilling, no blasting will be done on this project. Both Northeast Remsco and Ed Wien are perfectly aware that they cannot blast on this project per the terms of the contract. And they have submitted multiple communications to both the state in their responses to Spinello's protests and the city that indicate Ed Wien will only be doing drilling services, not blasting services. Finally, I'd like to note that this is a DPW consent decree contract. The same agency that the city has the consent decree with, the Maryland Department of the Environment, has now told the city multiple times that its approval is not going to change, and that the city can move forward with the lowest responsible bidder, which is Northeast Remsco. That was what was included in that latest email from September 24th from Mary Shepard. With that being said, the Law Department is of the opinion that this board should award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, and in doing so follow its historical practice of deferring to the state approval of DBEs in state-funded contracts, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
What was the next lowest bidder, the dollar amount?
What was the dollar amount?
The next lowest?
The next lowest bidder's dollar amount was $44,633,000
Okay.
for a difference of, when it was Spinello, for a difference of $333,189.
If I may be heard, I'm the,
Yes, sir.
I represent the protester. I'd like to be heard.
Are you guys done?
Yes, I'm done. Excuse me. Thank you for your time. Unless there are any questions, yes, of course.
We'll see. Yes, sir.
Yes. Good morning, Honorable President, members of the board. Brian Cashmere on behalf of Spinello Companies, the protester in this matter. As a threshold matter, I'd like to be heard briefly on our request for postponement. Spinello has asked that the board defer consideration of SC 940 for a couple of reasons. Spinello became aware that this was on the agenda on Monday morning. Upon hearing that, there was some surprise because, as the board knows, this has been the subject of ongoing communications between the board through the protest process as well as through the state, recognizing the city's position that the state is reviewing DBE issues. Spinello has reached out to the state and pointed out to the state that the approval letter that you have before you is dated February 22nd, 2019. And that predates Spinello's protest of May 3rd, 2019, February 2019, if I said 2018, I apologize. It predates that, and so Spinello has asked the state to reconsider that approval because of matters brought forth in the May protest. Essentially that the use by Northeast Remsco of a blasting subcontractor to comply with its WBE goals should be factored in to the state's analysis. That reconsideration request has gone into the state. The state is considering it. In our reconsideration proposal to the board, we pointed out that on September 16th, just last week, the state pointed out that they were willing to meet with Spinello's representatives to discuss the reconsideration. That letter has been provided to the board. In that, the state did say that they have a limited role in this procurement, but that they were interested in meeting. October 2nd at 10 o'clock has been the date set. Spinello asked for an earlier meeting. Spinello asked for a meeting last week, this week. It was the first available. That meeting goes forward. Many of the MBE, DBE, WBE issues that Spinello has will likely be resolved at the state level. I understand just now that the state has sent an email to the city saying that the state has a limited role in the Baltimore City procurement, and as explained, I haven't had the opportunity to read this, but I have had an opportunity to read their September 16th letter in which they have offered to meet to discuss these matters. So,
Counsel, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I appreciate you haven't had a chance to read the email, but they say, quote, as a courtesy, we have agreed to meet with Mr. Livingston and other representatives on Spinello. That would appear to be what it says, a courtesy, which one would expect from government officials to extend courtesy meetings, but it appears that the state has made its mind up about this, and there's no reasonable possibility that the department's going to change its mind.
I hear you, but September 16th letter that we've submitted requesting just a limited postponement or deferral does not say courtesy. That wasn't communicated to Spinello. Spinello had an expectation that they were going to have this process. They're being deprived of that, and it can be resolved by a simple deferment with limited prejudice to anyone. This matter's been going on for a year. We're looking at 2-3 weeks to allow that process to go forward, to allow that meeting to occur, to see if this can be resolved.
But also, I just want to say,
One second, Madam Comptroller. Are you finished? Madam Comptroller, go ahead.
Mr. Solicitor, if you read a little further, it says, therefore, it seems unlikely that the October 2nd meeting between the state and Spinello representative will result in the state's rescission of its approval of Northeast Remsco bid for SC 940.
So there's an opportunity. In that language, there's an opportunity. Unlikely, not never. It could happen. And all we're asking is that opportunity to present that this is important. It's important to Spinello, it's important to the procurement agencies, it's important to the city that we have complete transparency in understanding how this is being applied. And that's all we're asking for with the deferral. In addition to that, we asked for the deferral. We just received the Northeast Remsco responses to our protests yesterday morning, a mere hour and a half before our deadline for a protest. This was submitted to the city on May 20th. All this response to blasting that I just heard here is news to Spinello. We've not known about that. How can that's prejudicial to Spinello in the process that we were not given those documents. Now, however that happened, it happened. We were not in possession of that. We didn't understand Northeast Remsco's position that they are not going to blast. On the face of the papers, they were going to blast. That was our position. We are prejudiced not being able to respond to that in a timely manner. And I would suggest that the deferral also will cure that prejudice. Why go forward with that prejudice when a de minimis deferral of this will clear that up as well and increase the transparency?
So I have a question for the law department. So we know that this is a state DBE and not a city MBE. Let's just say someone made that same mistake on a city contract. What would have been the law department's opinion?
I'm not sure if I can speak to that. I think that would be reviewed by the MBU office.
Good morning, Tamara Brown, Chief
Good
of the
morning.
Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office. So if that mistake was made on one of our contracts, I would likely have thrown that out. With the blasting listed as a service, you have to list the service that will be provided on that contract, and would have most likely have.
Okay.
Most likely. However, they do. What we look at is what services are provided. So if they're certified to provide that service, then we would have approved it. So it just depends. They are certified, and typically we don't know the specs of the contract, like there's no blasting allowed. I don't know that would have trickled down to my office where we would have disqualified them for that. So that would have been up to the agency, I think, at that point. But for MBU, we just look at if the company is certified to provide that particular service that is listed on the form.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could just speak further to that point, that blasting mistake occurred on an EPA form that the form itself explicitly said that the bidder was not even bound to use that particular contractor. It's just used in a good faith effort analysis to make sure that these bidders in the DBE process are making good faith to utilize DBE enterprises.
Okay. Questions? Director Chow?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, this is as mentioned by the Spinello's counsel, this is a consent decree. This contract came in last October. It's nearly a year now. We're going on the 5th rounds of protests by them, which is basically going around and around and around. And I think the state had made it very clear that they have no issues with us moving forward. They analyzed the DBE requirements and they met whatever the requirement that the state revolving fund requires. We are anxious to move forward on this contract. It's stated this is a consent decree work, and we are, in essence, 1 year behind schedule now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Again, I would just restate, if the board determines to go forward, I'd like to be heard on the protest. But again, I think a limited deferral to allow this meeting to occur with the state and to allow us the opportunity to evaluate Northeast Remsco's May 20th submission that we just received yesterday would clear up any concerns and reduce prejudice and increase transparency. So I request that it be deferred.
Please continue with your protest.
Okay. Spinello protests the award of SC 940 to Northeast Remsco as recommended on today's agenda. Spinello comes forward today with this protest in good faith. And I understand and hear some frustration that there are multiple protests, but it was a complicated matter. We looked through, and when we found things, we brought it to the board's attention, again, with the goal of supporting the integrity of the system. What our biggest protest goes to is the responsiveness. Our view is that the bid provided by Northeast Remsco is not responsive in a number of material respects. And I'm not going to go through the entirety of our positions as set forth in the papers. I incorporate them. But if I can talk for just a moment about responsiveness and why it's so important. It's a critical component of the public procurement process. It's defined in the city's new procurement regulations as making sure that the bids conform with the specifications as set forth in the contract terms and conditions. You need conformance, and that's the key. The test for responsiveness is whether the bid as submitted, on the day it was submitted, based on the documents and materials provided, evidence an offer to perform the exact scope of work in the exact manner that is specified. That's responsiveness. And the purpose of responsiveness is to promote fairness and encourage an equitable wide competition among those bidders so that they're all providing the same work, the same responsibilities. You're providing an apples to apples comparison. Our position as well, another component of responsiveness that needs to be understood is it is well settled. It is well settled law that responsiveness must be determined on the face of the bid at the time of the bid, okay? This is important because this is something that's just come up. We now realize as of yesterday that Northeast Remsco has said, look, blasting is not what we're doing. While we said that on the form as the description of work, that's not what we intended. But the reality is, under the law, and I could, if given more time, I could provide the board with dozens of cases. But there's a Maryland State Board of Contract Appeals case that I found this morning on my iPhone at Starbucks. EPCO, Inc., MSBCA number 1977, 5 MSBCA at paragraph 415. It's a January 29th, 1997 case, which stands for the proposition that responsiveness has to be looked at on the bid. Nothing outside of the bid. Why is that important? And I will say that we do have a number of MBE, WBE form deficiencies that we have noted. I'm going to move past those based on the state's representation with respect to the state revolving fund and the state's role in that, and I would reserve just one moment to talk about that at the end. But let me talk about two significant material deviations in Northeast Remsco's package that don't have anything to do with the MBE goals or the WBE goals. And that is that they provided that Ed Wein would provide $1.2 million worth of work. Ed Wein is a New Jersey certified WBE, not a city or state. They also say that the scope of work to be provided by them is blasting. That's what they say, blasting. Both of these things, independent of what the state is reviewing for compliance with goals, deviate from the clear terms of the contract. At IB 10, the contract says you can only bid this using the city of Baltimore or the state of Maryland WBEs. They used a New Jersey one. They deviated from that clear express requirement of the contract. Why is that important? Because the city defined the pool that everyone in the competitive field could bid to. They defined the pool. They limited the pool. The other three bidders complied with that requirement. A competitive advantage is given to Northeast Remsco's bid when they're allowed to deviate from that clear requirement. And that makes this a non-responsive bid. That's the role of the Board of Estimates to evaluate that and say, wait a second, that's not fair. Why does Northeast Remsco get a larger pool versus everyone else? That's going to affect price. It affects responsiveness. That is a responsiveness issue. The blasting issue is also responsive. There's no dispute that blasting is prohibited. There's no dispute that in their bid as submitted, they indicated to the city that blasting was going to be done. Now I see yesterday, 23 hours ago, I see 24 hours ago, it's probably about 9:15 yesterday, I see that Northeast Remsco says, look, that wasn't a description of the work. That was just part of our name. That's not really what we're going to do. We're going to drill. okay? We're not going to blast. Well, that's not on the face of the bid. Responsiveness is on the face of the bid. You can't go outside of the bid to determine responsiveness. There's only one exception, and that is for minor irregularities. And you can read your own regulations. It doesn't allow you for responsiveness to look outside of the bid, but it does allow you to deviate from minor irregularities. It's not. And you know how I know it's not? Because yesterday I received this document from Ed Wein, undated. Ed Wein says to the City of Baltimore the following: to Baltimore City Board of Estimates, please accept this letter in response to your concerns expressed by the City of Baltimore with regard to our scope and work and means and methods on the SC 940 contract. After they submitted their bid, after Bradshaw, Spinello, Oscar Renta submitted their bids, they submitted something to the Board of Estimates that said, I was wrong. I'm not going to do blasting, and you're concerned about it. It's not a minor irregularity. If it was a minor irregularity, you wouldn't have said you were concerned. And it's clearly not part of their bid. This is a post-bid clarification that this tells the world they're not responsive. And for you to allow them to move forward, whether they're going to blast or not, based on that bid, eliminates transparency. It eliminates the rules that Bradshaw, Oscar Renta, and Spinello bid by. And I understand they've come back now and explained it. But what I'm saying here is that's too late. But with respect to the New Jersey and other, that's too late. If I could be heard for one moment on the issues with the state compliance. And this is just, it's a broader concern that Spinello has. And this is why, and I understand frustration with this, but this is why we're concerned. The city takes the position on these state-funded programs that they will not look at BEWB compliance. They're going to defer that to the state. No, they're not going to look behind it. The state, in both its email yesterday to Mr. Mullen, that the board has looked at, and in its letter to us on September 16th to Mr. Livingston, has told us they have a limited role. They have a limited role. They're a clerk. All they're checking is to see if a form's there. They're not looking behind the form. They're not looking for true compliance. There's a disconnect, Mr. President and members of the board. There's a disconnect here in these contracts. Who's looking for compliance with this important program in these instances? This is an aside. We believe that the non-responsiveness of Northeast Remsco on its face with those two critical points that I brought up give them a significant competitive advantage over the competition. It's not responsive, and for the city to allow them to come in after the fact, address the city's concerns with responsiveness is very atypical in a procurement process, and for that, they should be found non-responsive, their bid should be rejected, and Spinello should be found as a matter of law and fact to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and they should be awarded SC 940.
Thank you. Madam Comptroller?
Could you respond to his comments?
I think that Michael Mullen from the Law Department. I think the simple response to all of that is that Ed Wein was a certified bidder that was accepted by the MDE. We have that in their letters that they've approved. And this business about the responsiveness was also looked at by the MDE office. That's what they look at. They look at their forms. They look at the forms to make sure that there has been compliance with the state program. And we accept what they say. They've said to move forward with Northeast Remsco as the lowest responsible bidder, and we accept that. We knew that Ed Wein was certified by them to move forward with this contract, and that's what we really have traditionally based decisions on before this board, is that if the state has approved the process, and by the way, when we submit the paperwork to the state, we don't just submit the one piece of paper or the DBE papers. We submit the entire package to them. They know who the subs are. They know what all the bid prices were. They know what the various items of work that were represented to be worked on are in those papers. And so the MDE, in this case, does look at the whole picture. And if you look back at the document that Mr. Hildreth gave you earlier, it says at the very beginning, we have reviewed the entire package, and we have found that Northeast Remsco is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And that's why we are urging recommendation recommendation to the board, consistent with prior practice, that we've been consistent in this regard for years and years, that when the state approves the package, we go forward with that. And the bottom line, I think, on all of this, what I'd like to stress to you all is that Northeast Remsco has to do this project for the price they have bid, which is the lowest price, and they have to comply with the terms and conditions of the specifications, which say they can't blast, so that if they put blasting on an EPA form, by the way, and that form itself says right on it that the company is not even bound to use that contractor. It's almost a statement of good intent or something. I'm not really sure why the state put that EPA form in there, but it's not a form that the city created. It's not a form that binds the contractor to use Edwin in any way. At the very least, putting the word blasting on there is a simple mistake, because everybody knows you can't blast under this contract. If they try to blast, we're going to stop them. And Northeast will have to do the job without blasting, and they have to do it for the price that they've bid, and they are the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And I think that is my summary. I'm happy to answer any further questions you may have, Madam Comptroller, or Mr. President, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Comptroller?
If I could have a quick response to that.
1 second, sir.
Just to that one
Any other questions from the board? Yes, sir, very quickly.
That one point, I'm not talking about the state. I'm not talking about the state reviewing this. I'm talking about them bidding this and indicating that the scope of work, the description of work by Edwin will be blasting. That's what they communicated to the city, not the state. The city expressed a concern. This is independent of the state's DBE review. The city expressed a concern. It's in writing. They responded to the city's concern. This has nothing to do with DBE, MBE, or WB. It has to do with specific responsiveness. The city was concerned, reached out, asked for that. This has to do with general responsiveness. That's a city requirement for review. The city, quite frankly, cannot hide behind the state's review. And on that, by the way, the state's review, if you look at it, February 22nd, it says that they're going to do blasting. Read that letter. They believe that Edwin is going to do blasting. It says it, the last line of that page that was submitted by the city solicitor to you says it was done blasting. The state didn't review it. The city can't hide behind the state.
Thank you. Thank you. I will entertain a motion. Oh, yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning.
My name is Robert Fulton DeShield. I represent the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Northeast Remsco. We support the recommendation made by the Department of Public Works. We support the position taken by the Law Department. We think that they're completely accurate. This is the rules have been the rules forever. They will apply to everybody. There's no favoritism. There's no arbitrariness. There's no capriciousness about it. We urge the board to accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, just to complete the record, I simply want to note that the protestant filed a lawsuit yesterday in the Circuit Court for Baltimore City seeking an emergency order against the board. I conferred with the court last evening by telephone, and the court has elected not to enjoin or forestall the board's decision this morning. With that background, Mr. President, I move to deny the request for postponement and further to reject the protest in all particulars, and that the recommended award be approved.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Nay. The motion carries. As there is no more business before the board, we will recess until bid opening at 12 noon.
Good afternoon, everyone. The board is now in session for the receiving and opening of bids. There are no addenda for today. In the interest of promoting the order and efficiency of the hearings, persons who are disruptive to the hearing will be asked to leave the hearing room. Meetings of the Board of Estimates are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. The hearing room must be vacated at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. Thank you. So the first item.
Controller, I know that I'm out of order and I will immediately leave. I am Dr. Marvin Cheatham. I'm a life member, alumnus of Compton State University. I am making myself available, even though I will leave to be arrested. I just want to voice a strong opposition to the decision made by the Board of Estimates last week without any community dialogue and there being no accessibility study done on Coppin for there to be a decision to give the police academy to the University of Baltimore, which is basically one of the individual organizations that testified against the Maryland HBCUs. To give them the police academy is an insult to us here in Baltimore City. And I just want to make my opposition publicly known. I'm also president of a neighborhood association directly down the street from Coppin. None of the communities were communicated with, but this community, and we're saddened that 3 of the highest ranking African-American elected officials decided to take part with the governor and to provide something to a University of Baltimore, which is one of the white institutions that we filed the lawsuit against in the HBCU case. How do we continue to discriminate against the 4 HBCUs? So I know I'm due to leave. I'm surprised you didn't have the police here, because we did tell the police I was going to be a little disruptive. So no harm meant to y'all personally, but we just want to make it publicly known that this is an awful decision. It's very easy to come back and do a motion for reconsideration, and all we asking you to do is to table any action. It's only been a week, and all we asking you to do is to table this issue about whether UAB should get it or Coppin should get it. Give a public discussion, but more than especially do a feasibility study, which this body has not done. You made a decision about Coppin, and there is no feasibility study. So thank you. I'm sorry, no harm to y'all personally, but being a longtime member of Coppin from '71, I have to speak out. So sorry for the interruption, but I had to make this known. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doc Cheatham, and your comments will be noted in the minutes. Thank you very much. The first item to be open is the Bureau of Procurement, B50005886, portable generator with no bid bond. The first company is Fidelity Power. Total bid price, $253,862. $253,862.
It's not applicable, but I guess they could.
Okay. The next bidder is Corelli Inc. with a check. Total dollar amount, $219,998. $219,998. The next bidder is Ramsey Blease Corp., doing business as Let Generators, with a check. It might be Lead Generators. Total bid amount, $188,888. $188,888.
Okay, these will be referred to the Bureau of Purchasing for review.
The next item is Bureau of Procurement B50005868. Provide mobile and on-site shedding with no bid bond. The first bidder is Clean Cut Shredding. Total bid amount is $284,940. $284,940. The next bidder is Pro Shred Security. Total bid amount $173,703. $173,703.
Okay, both of these will be referred to purchasing for review.
The last item is the Bureau of Procurement, B50005835, City of Baltimore and HABC Disparity Study Technical Opening. So the prices won't be read.
So he has it for 5835, and you open it, it's 5619. Okay. If they can make a decision. Right. How much be the right bid.
There's a right bid number here,
But it's
but the old bid number there.
See if you read the the substance inside, is that correct?
He has the right one here.
Okay.
This is from the city.
Okay.
Refer to the law department.
We don't know. Yeah. Okay.
You refer to the law department.
Okay. Yeah. Funded yes.
The first bidder is Mason Tillman Associates LTD Limited.
There's no price.
No price, that's correct. So it will be referred to the law department because the cover has the old solicitation number on it. So it will be referred to the law department.
Okay. I'd like to request a motion that the bid of Mason Tillman Associates be referred to the Law Department for review. Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the bid of Mason Tillman Associates will be referred to the Law Department for review.
next bidder
This is yours.
is MGT Consulting Group. The next bidder is Miller 3 Consulting, Inc. The next bidder is Griffin and Strong PC. The last bidder is Miller 3 Consulting, Inc. Do they have two of them?
I think this is,
They have two?
Yeah, they have two parts. There's part 1 and 2, and part A and B.
okay, so they're
I think
bidding on a
they-
different part. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the sheet says parts 1 and 2, and then part A and B. So,
So do we need to read what part they are? So were they the same? These are the same. Is it the same? But it's the same company. Same bid. It's the same bid. So why didn't we do both?
So you know what it is?
Hmm?
They gave 2 originals and 2 duplicates. So both of yours are originals.
Okay, okay.
But see, they was like this, line of figure, and the one was there,
Oh.
the original one,
Oh, okay. But they're the same thing.
It's the same.
the same company.
Right, we didn't have to read it then.
Yes, we did, because they sent 2 separate, 4 boxes, a A and a B, and so I don't know why they did it.
Is that it?
if it's the same thing, then it's a duplicate. It's not a problem.
Because we had 2 separate
Right.
Okay, we'll keep going. Go
We're good,
ahead.
I think. Okay. Oh, yes, I apologize. So the bids of MGT of America Consulting, Griffin and Strong, Miller 3 Consulting, Inc. will be referred to purchasing for review. The bid of Mason Tillman Associates is referred to the Law Department.
Okay, and I omitted to say that there were no addenda had been received for today's date, September the 25th, 2019. I think I did read that.
I think you did, but it's okay to say it twice.
Okay.
Okay.
There being no more business before this board is being adjourned. Thank you.